everybody. Welcome. I can't explain or begin to describe how excited I am to have this screening and to celebrate our great filmmakers. Thank you all for coming today. I wanted to start by introducing myself and Grace Patterson, who are kind of like the producers or kind of overseeing this project. And then we would want the other student board members to begin introducing themselves. So hi everybody, my name is Nanami. I use she, her pronouns. I've been part of this project since September, the very beginning, and I had just the wonderful pleasure of working with these smart and brilliant filmmakers for about 7 months now, and I am just so proud and excited to be here today. Yeah.
Hey everybody, my name is Grace Patterson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an employee at Real Stories, and I'm super excited to be here to talk about the divided states of America. These student board members have done an absolutely incredible job in making a documentary, and it's so great to see you all here ready to ask some questions and answer some questions. And the first thing that we're going to go ahead and start out with is asking the members of the student board their name, how long they've been involved with Real Stories, and what role they filled during this filmmaking journey. So Nanami and I will go ahead and call out people to just say it. And we're going to start with Kayla.
Hi, I'm Kayla. I've been involved with Real Stories for, oh gosh, I don't know how many years. I think 5 years. And don't fact check me on that. And I worked as one of the directors for the beginning part of the film. Is that it?
Great. Yes. And then Grace, do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Grace Kelly. I've been with Real Stories for 3 or 4 years, I think, and I was one of the editors.
Chloe?
Hi, I'm Chloe. I've been with Real Stories, I think, since 2018, and I was on the student board last year, and I worked as a director on the middle part of the film.
Taylor?
Hi, I'm Taylor Cole-Frieman. I've been here 3 or 4 years. I was doing found footage and music for the end part.
Ax?
Hi, I'm Ax. My pronouns are they, them. I've been part of Real Stories for 1 year. This is my first year, and I was working with the beginning team, mostly on found footage and music.
Aya?
Hi, I'm Aya. My pronouns are she, her, and I've been with Real Stories, same as Kayla, 5 or 6 years. And I worked both in finding archive footage and editing in the end group.
Izzy?
Hi, I'm Isabella. I've been with Real Stories for 4 years, and I helped find found footage and music for the middle group.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Viola Spencer. I think I've been with Real Stories for 2 years, 1 or 2 years, and I mainly worked as an editor on the end part of the documentary.
Thank you all. And just so you know, there's one more filmmaker, Sasha Lee, who isn't here yet, but she worked as an editor and did an absolutely phenomenal job. So thank you all for introducing yourselves. And if people would like to go ahead and put a clapping hand emoji for the awesome work that the student board did. Thank you all. So we'll go ahead and move to the next question. Nanami, would you like to ask it?
Yeah, so I know everyone has seen the film, but I was hoping one person could kind of answer this question of how would you describe this film to someone who has never seen it before? Yeah, whoever wants to go.
Aya?
Yeah, I would describe this film as kind of an accumulation of well, it focuses on voter suppression over the course of the 2020 election, and so yeah, that's a simple way to describe it, I think.
Thank you, Aya. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next question. And we'd like a couple of student board members to answer, which is, what makes this film unique? And what is one of your favorite elements of the film?
I think
Okay, go ahead, Taylor, and then Kayla. You
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think what makes this film unique is we had to do it in a different way because it was, COVID, and it was basically all on Zoom. And yeah, my favorite part of the film is all the icon footage and all the hard work that we did at school. So
Kayla?
Yeah, I think that Taylor got it right. Like, that is, like, making a documentary during a pandemic is obviously very difficult, and I think makes our documentary unique, as well as the fact that all of us were not of voting age when we were creating this documentary. So I think that having that teenage, high school perspective makes our films unique in that way. Coming from a place where we don't really have the civic power, I guess, to talk about this or use a vote in that kind of way. And my favorite part of the film, is it of the film or making the film?
Either one.
Either one. I'll do both then. I love working with everyone on the student board. I think everyone is so talented and amazing and great to work with. And my favorite part of the film is near the end, where it fades from the cheering of people celebrating the Biden win into going into the yelling and chaos of the riots on the Capitol.
Thank you so much. So it looks like we have a question from Robin in the chat. And that question is, how did you find, access, and vet archive footage? So anybody who worked in that area during the documentary, you can feel free to talk a little bit about that. Izzy? Isabella?
So for me, I found archival footage by going on YouTube and just searching for what I needed specifically. And yeah, and then we downloaded the videos and we inserted them into Premiere and cut them to what we needed.
Was there anything that was difficult about doing that?
Well, I personally can't speak on that because our editor mostly handled the footage after we found it. But for me, it was fairly simple because I just had to watch the videos and find clips that we needed.
Thank you. Nanami, would you like to ask the next question?
Sure. So another question I have is that what can people who are unable to vote do to get involved in politics? And I'm hoping to get an answer from a couple of folks here.
I think one way you can get involved is, well, for example, we interviewed the co-presidents of the Teens for Biden Club at Piedmont High School. And I think one way you can get involved is definitely joining clubs like that, hosting events, or just finding any way to get your voice out. Like for us, the way of getting our voices out was making a film. So I think just finding any way you can really get your opinion out there and make your stance. And yeah, I think any way you can do that would really help you find your voice and your opinion on where you stand on the issue.
Chloe?
Yeah, Chloe?
I know that I and a lot of other people wrote postcards to voters in swing states. And that's one way that you can stay active in politics, even when you can't vote. I think that it's also just really important to stay informed, reading the news every day, and just forming your own opinions on issues and not just kind of following politicians without being informed.
Thank you, guys. So we have another question, and I'd love if everybody in the student board could answer, which is, what is something that you learned while creating this film? It could be something that you learned about yourself, about the world, about filmmaking, politics, just whatever comes to mind for you. Does anybody volunteer to go first? Grace?
One thing I learned about myself was that even though I thought I was fairly informed, there was a lot more that I knew I had to learn about political issues and how people felt. And I think I learned a lot about the other side because I would be very opinionated on certain topics, but I didn't really fully understand the other side of the issue.
Kayla?
Yeah, I thought I was more informed too, but I need to learn more and like research more. So yeah.
Chloe?
I think like I've never done a documentary like this where like the like storyline of it is kind of constantly changing as current events evolve and like the election kind of unfolds. And I think that one thing that I learned about myself was I like to have like everything very like mapped out and very planned out. And you can't necessarily do that when like new things are happening every day. So it's interesting just to kind of like work with this documentary and work well. Things were constantly evolving and like you don't know how the documentary is going to end like when you start making it. So that was really interesting.
Kayla?
Yeah, I think just to like build off of what Chloe said, I think making a documentary while the events are happening is so confusing as a filmmaker because you want to know exactly what points of the film are going to be like more important or like have more like tension, that kind of thing. And I think personally for me, I thought that the presidential debates were going to have like a really big impact and be one of the biggest things that was going to be in our documentary. And that didn't end up happening simply because so much more chaotic stuff kept on happening and we didn't expect that at all. And I think that's just an example of like how crazy it is to do it in this way.
Aya?
Just similar to what Kayla and Chloe were saying, you know, there's, I think, the constantly changing element of the film, and that helped me learn both like the process of making a documentary and how that's very different from, you know, making a narrative film where you don't have everything planned out, and then also the material, like the subject we're focusing on itself, of voter suppression. And obviously going into this film, I knew that voter suppression was a major issue, and we started, you know, pre-election, but I learned a lot while making it of how much of an impact voter suppression can have, and seeing that play out over the course of the election, after the election, all those different things. So I also learned a lot about the subject itself too.
Isabella?
Similarly to what Aya said, I knew before we filmed this documentary that voter suppression was a huge issue, but I think I learned a lot from the interviewees about voter suppression, like them talking about different forms of it, and it really informed me on that issue.
Viola?
Okay, sorry, could you repeat the question?
Basically, the question was if you learned something throughout the documentary, whether it's about yourself, about filmmaking, about politics, just anything you'd want to share.
I guess I remember a lot of kind of the same as other people have said. Sorry. A lot of the same of what other people have said, just kind of I'm in the middle of talking.
And I'm giving you some of your neighbors so you can get paid.
I'm so sorry. A lot of people, what other people said, just kind of learning more about the political process, and I was already sort of informed, but I wasn't really kind of like fully informed of everything that was going on. And just also kind of doing a documentary that, like, I was on the student board last year, and the documentary was completely different from this one, just not only in like subject matter, but how it was being made, because last year we were kind of going over things that have already happened and other things that like we could pull from, but this was happening as we were making it and having to form and like be like mold around all these different events that are happening like in real time. I remember like when the insurrection happened, all of us were like, this is really important. How are we going to include it? Because this huge thing just happened. And I think that was just really interesting to be able to just learn how to really do that and how to be a part of like a documentary that's like that.
Then Ax?
I think, unlike a lot of people here, I never saw myself as someone who really involved in politics. And I, I didn't start doing this film because I didn't see it as like an opportunity for me to like really start getting involved in politics. I saw it more as, learning more things about filmmaking, but it really did make me realize like I had to pay more attention to the news. I had to, know who I was going to talk to, and like when people are saying things and they're talking about it, you have to know what they're talking about. And I think it's forced me into a position of like really needing to pay attention to politics, and I am eternally grateful for that. Yeah. Was I supposed to say something else?
No, you're totally fine. Nanami, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, thanks everybody for sharing. I thought you all said some meaningful stuff. I have one more question before we move on to some other audience questions, but what's something an interviewee said that resonated with you? And just wanted some answers from a couple people for this one. Ax?
Something that my circus teacher said when I was interviewing her. She was talking about including politics when she teaches, and how she can use what's happening in the world to apply to what she's doing. And so that she mostly does it when she's applying to teaching how kids think about themselves. And she said, it's weird to have to teach, don't act like these political leaders in your life. And I think it kind of set a new standard in my head. Like the person, when I am, sorry, it's a fly, able to vote, I want to vote for someone where I'd want them to be my teacher, where like I would want to, emulate them, or, have some qualities where I would want to teach someone about this person and be proud of teaching them about it. And I think that was a really good way to put it, at least for my head and for my brain, judging politicians.
I can go ahead and talk. I spent a lot of time interviewing Mather Martin, going over the interview and editing it, and I was there for the interview. And to something that I think really stuck out to me was she was talking about how like how important it is to stay focused and to really understand and like know that politics is not like something where it's like you can only pay attention for a little bit. It's like something, if you're like working in it and even just kind of being a citizen, you have to pay attention to it all the time because it's moving and everything is, and there's so many like things happening, not only in like the state you live in, but on a national level. So there's just so many different components that you need to pay attention to and that you want to pay attention to, just so you know what is happening. And I thought that was something that really kind of like stuck out to me.
Thank you. So for the next question, we're going to go ahead and start with some audience questions. And there's a question from Heidi in the chat that's asking, how did you all work together during this pandemic time? Did you meet on Zoom to discuss? Chloe?
Yeah, so we met for 2 hours every week on Saturdays, and about halfway through the project, we started meeting a second day in our individual groups, which was basically we split since we were working on Zoom and we couldn't all be like working on it together, like looking at the same computers in person. We split into 3 groups, and so there was a group for the beginning, the middle, and the end, and each group had a director, an editor, and a found footage person. And we worked in those groups pretty much throughout most of the time. In the beginning, we were kind of all working together. And then towards the end, we switched to like one group was just finalizing edits, one group was doing title cards, and one group was putting the testimonials that you saw at the end together. But they were still like the same 3 groups of people.
Thank you, Chloe. And we have another question in the chat from Robin, which is asking, how far along were you when the election transpired? And then how far along were you on January 6th?
You can go ahead.
Well, for the January 6th, I think we were just like beginning post-production, and so it was kind of interesting because, at least for me, I had never been in a documentary where you'd have to like go to the next phase post-production, which is the editing phase, and then you'd have to go back and film like follow-up interviews and get more footage for that. So I thought that was really interesting because it kind of, at least for me, it kind of stressed me out too, because I was like, oh wow, we have more stuff to like, we have all this stuff that we need to record because it's too important to pass up, but like we only have 20 minutes to like a 20-minute time limit for our film. How are we going to do this? But we all worked together and we got it done.
Thank you, Grace. And we have one more question in the chat from Gail, which is asking, did your work on this project cause anyone to want to go into political journalism? Aya?
Yeah, I think so I've been doing journalism also at school for the last few years. So that's also something I've been interested in. But I definitely see like a lot of overlap between this film we've been making and the style of journalism of trying to spread information. And I think, yeah, it did make me more interested in political journalism. They both are just forms of storytelling. And I'm always just interested in any form of storytelling. So I don't know. This is kind of a different angle than a lot of like journalism stories I've written. And so I don't know, being able to do it and film and then also being able to write, I think those are both really fun things to do. So yeah, I would say so.
Thank you, Aya. And we have another question from Clarissa. And Clarissa asked, was there any footage you wanted to include but ultimately had to cut for whatever reason? So maybe some favorite interview clips or moments in history in the last couple of months.
There were like a couple. I can't really exactly pinpoint what like the interviewee was saying, but I remember like one of the interviews that we conducted was with a political science professor, and like just there were so many amazing things that he had to say, but there were so many that like a lot of them we couldn't include because we had all these other interviews and we wanted to get a wider range of like voices in it. But like there were like some parts that I remember I kind of like pulled aside and was like, well, if we have a little time, we can like find somewhere to put it. I don't think we actually got to put it in the film, but yeah.
And Kayla?
Yeah, I think that like also like I had a certain person who we interviewed who I really wanted to like just make the whole entire documentary just them if I could, who was Audrey Edel, and she's one of the co-presidents of Teens for Biden. And I think that her perspective as a high schooler was so important, as well as like just how well spoken she is. And I think that really shows in the documentary. Just like she has a way with like putting words together just right, and she has such strong beliefs, and I think that she was like a great addition to our film, and I would have loved to have the whole thing be just her, but we had a lot of amazing other people in her documentary as well.
Chloe?
I think not necessarily like a specific interview, but just like there's so many like historical aspects at play in voter suppression, and it's really hard to cover all that in like one 20-minute film. And I think that it's just like it's important to like look at things from the bigger picture, like systemic racism and like um, like capitalism and all of these issues and how it plays into where we are today. And I think that those are all really important to look at in the context of this film. And if we were making like a 2-hour documentary, I would have loved to add a lot of kind of historical details to it.
Ax?
Yeah, in terms of the interviews, I think there were certain parts about people's specific perspectives that I like, more personal stories, and how like really politics is involved very specifically in their lives, where I really would have loved to like go down those rabbit holes, especially like with different people, like comparing like a political science professor to someone who's a circus teacher, which are completely different fields, but how politics is still an important role in both of their lives and for different reasons. And I think if we were making a slightly different documentary, we really could have, even with the same interviews, like those it's with the same interview we can have the film we made, and also one just completely about their lives and how politics affected them. And I think that's, I guess, what makes documentaries interesting, is when you can look at an interview and make like multiple entire different films just based off of what pieces you choose. So this is also a really good question.
Thank you all for answering. I know there was a lot of amazing footage that didn't end up in the final cut, so it's really great to hear. We have another question from Clarissa, which is, what was the most challenging part of the editing process? So if any of our editors would like to talk about that. Grace?
I think just meeting the deadlines because it definitely creeps up on you. Even if you're working on it a lot outside of our like sessions, it still doesn't seem like enough time to really tweak and perfect it, but at some point you just got to realize like this is good as it is, and like yeah, it's good as is and we should be proud of it. So I think for me the deadlines was the most difficult part.
Viola?
I while editing, because we're able to a little
Hey, Vi. I'm not sure if you can hear us, but it sounds like you're cutting out a little bit. Okay. It looks like their screen is frozen. So maybe what they can try to do is turn their camera off for a second and put the answer in the chat. Okay, so I'll rejoin in a sec. We can go ahead and go to another audience question and come back to Vi when they're back. So here's a question from Sun, which is asking, how did you decide to make this film about elections? Did you have any other topics that were on the short list? Chloe?
I think that elections was kind of like, or like the 2020 election was kind of like the only topic that was proposed to people that wanted to apply, but specifically about voter suppression was a decision that like we made as a group. And I think it was just because especially during the pandemic and like false information being spread about mail-in voting and just the history of voter suppression, we decided that it would be a good topic to kind of build off of for our documentary.
Thank you. And Vi, it looks like you're back. Do you want to answer a little bit about the editing process and what was most difficult for you?
Yeah, I can continue. I was just kind of saying how like not being able to like immediately be like switching or like putting in input or like going between like the different computers that people were editing on, like we would be able to for like the other documentaries or like other films that I've worked on. That was probably one of the most challenging things, is just not being able to like collectively work together in like the same room and in the same setting.
For sure. But yeah, thank you, audience, for asking questions. Feel free to put more in the chat, anything you want to know. And so we're going to move on to another question. And we'd love to hear from a couple of people. Just what advice would you give somebody who wants to learn more about filmmaking or wants to become a filmmaker themselves? Chloe? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, I said definitely go to Real Stories. They've been awesome. I learned a lot. They like really helped me with my filmmaking, and yeah, they're like really cool. So go there if you want to learn how to be a filmmaker.
Thank you. And Chloe?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, go to Real Stories. And also, like, there's tons of information on YouTube. Like, I just got Premiere for myself, and it's been like really cool to just like kind of play around with it and learn how to use it more. And just like you don't have to have a bunch of fancy technology. You can make a movie on your phone. It doesn't have to be like super crazy professional looking. Just make films about what you're passionate about and about what you want to make films about. You don't necessarily have to cater to a certain like somebody else. Just do what you're passionate about.
Ax?
Building off what Chloe said, I mean, I went to a camp where we made a whole film, it was only like 5 minutes, but in 2 weeks. And basically you like spend the first week like writing your script, figuring out what it's about, and then you spend the next week filming and editing it. And you just kind of just go. And you know, you come up with some like pretty nice films, like, and you can always go back. There's always space to, you know, like film what you want and just change it when you don't like it. And then there's also like there are certain things where you go back and you're like, ooh, that was embarrassing. But then that was like also like a time where you get to see that you learned so much. Like, look at how I now get to say that that's embarrassing and like know that I've improved. Or hopefully, or maybe you've just done something different. And yeah, but filmmaking doesn't need it. Also, I feel like a lot of people are scared about like a huge time commitment, but it really doesn't need to be. 2 weeks was like enough for people to make some nice films. So yeah.
Thank you, Ax. And Viola, if you want to go.
Yeah, I just want to like kind of build off of what Ax was saying about real stories and something about like I remember when I first came to camp like last year, I was a little worried that it was like, oh, it's only 2 weeks. That's not a lot of time to do everything. But like just being a part of it and having that like set deadline that wasn't like completely set. You still had a little bit of time to like, oh, if something happened in editing that you want to fix, then like you could go back with your team or like do something with your team and just be like, okay, we're gonna fix this, and then that will be our final that we will submit. But it wasn't the one shown at the premiere. Like that was having that kind of like time frame and those other people that you knew were like you guys were relying on each other to make this. It I think it really like kind of like took away that whole like because like on like working on my own, one of the hugest things is like getting started and like picking the thing that I want and really going through it and really like making it. And like just having all those other people to be around and having that like kind of short little week, the 2 weeks to really do it, like it just it shows you like not only is like you will learn the process and like even if you do like make something that you are like kind of like, oh, I'm not so sure about it, like you can see that like maybe it was better than you expected, or like you will be able to learn from it like as you keep going and as you keep working like on your own and with real stories. And I think that is just really amazing that you get to see that like it's not impossible, it's totally doable and you can do it yourself.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing your filmmaking tips and tricks and advice. It's all super helpful and it's really great to hear. And then Nanami, if you want to ask the next question.
Yeah, so this is kind of going off of what Heidi was asking earlier, but I wanted to know, like, what was your experience with creating a film remotely? What were some of the challenges, and what's something you enjoyed out of this process? Kayla?
I think that working like remotely and like on Zoom made it like a little bit harder to like connect with the people you're working with. Like even though we spend so much time together, it's much different than when you're like in person. And I know when I was on the student board last year, something we always bonded over was like what snack we're eating that day, like over like green grapes, and something so simple as that we have from like pre-pandemic life is like now like so precious. And I think that that's something that I definitely like missed, but I still got to know all these wonderful people on the student board regardless, because we were able to do like different kinds of activities. So like we watched like a movie together and it was remotely and it was so weird, but it was so cool. And I think that in like working on the actual documentary, it actually was almost easier to like edit together because we can all be seeing the exact same thing of like what's happening in Premiere at the same exact time. And I think that's awesome because when you're in like person, sometimes you're like, oh, I can't really see it. I'll just look over your shoulder, I guess. But like on Zoom, everyone can see what's happening and it makes it more collaborative, I think.
I saw Grace's hand earlier. Did you still want to share?
Yeah, so I think I agree with Kayla. I thought like last year I did the student board as well, and we definitely got to bond over things that you can't really talk about that much when you're on Zoom. But so I was a little worried about, getting to know people because that's also part of making a film is you get to know like so many incredible people who inspire you and help you and support you. But looking back, like that should not have been a worry because like I had so much fun making a film with everyone, and it was really great getting to work with each other, and there were so many great ideas from everyone that really made the film special and unique to us. And so I think that I think the teamwork that we kind of like all collaborated on to make to make the film, it really made it special, and that's why I have so much pride in the film that we made.
Aya?
Yeah, I think with Zoom, even though it was kind of tricky sometimes, I think we were maybe even more organized because we were online and we had like a very specific setup of who's doing what. And then, so it was very much a team effort of not just everyone like pouncing on one thing, but everyone just kind of splitting up the work and like really collaborating well together. So I think that really helped. And then as for like team bonding, yeah, I was thinking of the same thing, but I feel like we had some really fun times together where it was like, for example, we played Among Us one time and that was really, really fun. It's my first time playing Among Us and I like had a blast doing that. Or there are times where we might get like a little sidetracked, but we just have like our group would just have like random discussions about the most random things that pop in our heads. And those were always really fun. So yeah, it was nice being able to spend time with my team and everyone else too.
Thank you all for answering. And again, audience, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat. I see that Alexandria said, so inspired by all of you incredible filmmakers, which I could definitely relate to. So inspired by all y'all. And we're going to go ahead and move on to another question, which is, a lot of times young people feel like their voices and perspectives don't matter. And at Real Stories, we know that they do matter. And as a filmmaker, how do you share your perspectives and voice through filmmaking, and how do you gain confidence in your voice? And I would love to hear from a couple of people about figuring out that your voice does matter through filmmaking, and having confidence in what you have to say. Grace?
Well, for me, I like to see filmmaking as another language almost, because as you can probably tell, I'm not very good at speaking in front of people and being in front of the camera, but being behind it is like it's like a safe space almost for me. And I think using the camera lens as like your eye and showing people kind of literally what you see the world as, I think that's really empowering for me, is just being able to like have this special little thing where I can like show people like visually, this is how I see things and this is what I feel. And I think with filmmaking, it gives you so much freedom with being able to like show visually with different angles and like coloring, being able to like help kind of support and show other people's voices with interviewees from our documentary, and with special effects and all these things that really kind of make your film special. So I think being able to formulate like a sentence, which would be your film, is really special. And I think one thing that's empowering to me is just finding another way to be able to speak instead of stuttering and using filler words when you're talking to people.
Yeah, going off that, I'm kind of a shy person, so I watch a lot of movies and stuff, and I think, yeah, movie making is just like my way of expressing myself, and I'm not that scared anymore or like nervous what people think. So yeah.
For sure. And Ax?
In terms of gaining confidence, I think it's like you have to not be afraid to look stupid. Like you have to be able to let yourself look stupid sometimes. And also like surround yourself with people who like you think are like smarter or more experienced than you. Like let yourself like be the stupid person in the room. Like that has so many advantages you don't even know. Like you're gonna feel so much better. Um and like for example, like I was in my group with Kayla and Grace, that we were like the beginning team, and I was like in a space where like they also like created a safe space for me where I felt like I'm like, I don't know how to put things into a Google Drive, can you explain this to me? And Grace was like, okay, sure, and like explain the whole thing, and I felt comfortable enough to ask that question. So that's one thing for people who are like more advanced. Like be nice to people because they really appreciate it. And also like when you're gaining confidence, like know that you're learning from people who are more experienced than you, and like they like that kind of thing. They like knowing that they can like teach you, and doing those kinds of things and want to learn from them and have fun with it.
Kayla?
Yeah, I think just like I want to echo everything that has already been said. And I think that for me, like I came to Real Stories, like I still don't know, it's 5 or 6 years ago, but I was like so small and I've always been like a really shy person. And I actually thought I was an introvert and I realized I'm actually an extrovert. I was just shy. That's unrelated, but Real Stories and talking with even just like Esther Pearl, who's the founder of Real Stories, I was able to like get a lot of confidence in being both a filmmaker and a person as well. Because I was always like that one kid who'd be like in the back being like, I don't know if I have anything to say that's like worthy, but Real Stories really provides a safe space where everyone's so supportive and wants to hear what you have to say, which I think is not found in like a lot of other places where people think that they're like always the best. And so I think I've always felt really safe at Real Stories to like find myself and to find myself as a filmmaker and realize that like if I want to talk, people are gonna listen and vice versa. So I think that that's one of the most important things that I've like learned.
Thank you, Kayla. Does anybody else want to share?
I guess I can just kind of like add on a little bit that like just like listening to everybody and just knowing that like this is and not even just only on this documentary but like in like previous like things that I've done with Real Stories, it's such an amazing space to just be in because you know that you're in like good company. Like I don't think I've met someone who hasn't been like so collaborative and supportive. And not only are we like as like people who are more experienced, you can learn from the less experienced people. Just like it goes both ways, like being able to like teach someone about like what everything is, you can also learn from them. And like um I really I really think that just like being in a place where like I
We
not
lost
really like
Vi. Oh, Vi, you cut off a little bit. Can you backtrack? I think you stopped around kind of talking about your experience at Real Stories, I think.
yeah. I was just kind of talking about how like um being in a space, like knowing that you're in a space with a lot of like-minded people and you can like learn from just everybody just from talking to them. And it's really created like a community where like everybody is like very passionate about like what we're talking about and what we're doing. And it helps kind of like, at least like for me personally, it was just kind of like I could talk to them about like these important issues and I didn't have to feel like judged or anything. And like I could be open about like all my ideas and know that I was getting honest and like honest feedback on it or like things like that.
Thank you all for sharing. And just so the audience knows, Nanami and I have one more prepared question. So if there's any last questions or comments that you want to add, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and read the one that Sun just put in that says, I feel so hopeful for the future with such intelligent and gifted young people sharing your voice with the world. Thank you, Sun. And we have another comment from Gail, which is, we very much enjoyed this discussion and the opportunity to participate in the project. We are proud and optimistic that you are our future. Great work. And we have another comment from Clarissa that says, great job to you all. So proud of all of the work you accomplished over this last school year. So big congrats to all of you. And we have one last question. If Nanami, you want to ask it?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to hear the answer to this question, and I'm hoping to get a response from everyone, which is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Big question, I know. And what would you like to accomplish as a filmmaker? Is anyone able to volunteer to go first?
I can go. See myself in 5 years. Probably going to film school. Well, I want to be a filmmaker. And yeah, I'm really passionate about it. So probably sound or some music, something like that. And yeah, so.
Anyone else willing to go next? Grace?
I think I'll be like towards like in my last year of college in 5 years. I really don't know. But same as Taylor, I hope to be at a film school or majoring in film somewhere along those lines, hopefully at like UCLA or a good school like that. But yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be able to learn a lot because I want to be a cinematographer or an editor. And so I really hope I am working to reach that goal in 5 years.
I saw Chloe's hand first.
I think I will be in like my sophomore year of college then. So like film school, fingers crossed. But I also know that like if I don't end up going to film school, that doesn't mean that like I can't be a filmmaker. You don't have to go to film school to work in the film industry. Yeah, I hope to be a director. Yeah.
Aya?
Yeah, I think in 5 years, I will have graduated college or be finishing up college. I'm not 100% sure. I think graduating college. So I'm headed to film school in the fall, which I'm really excited for, and I'm hoping that I'll make the most of it within the next 4 years or so. So I'm excited for that. And I'm also, since I don't really know what my favorite part of filmmaking is yet, since I like doing a lot of things, I'm hoping to like kind of figure out, I don't know, what my favorite part of it is and what I really like working on, and hopefully starting to actually like go into the industry. So, and then also based off what Chloe said, how you don't have to go to film school to become a filmmaker, which is totally true. I've heard from so many people who didn't go to film school, so that's not the only route you have to take. Yeah, there's so many other places you can go before becoming a filmmaker.
Kayla?
Yeah, so I just found out like yesterday that I'm also going to be attending film school in the fall, a different school, but yeah, and so I'm really excited about that. And I guess I'll be graduated in 5 years, so I hope to just like be working in the industry, hopefully as a director. But I think for me, the most important part is that I'm continuing to make things that are important to me and feel relevant and that I can be proud of more so than anything else.
Vi?
In 5 years, I believe I'll be a sophomore in college. Hopefully, if I go, like carry out the plan that I've made. At that point, I'm hoping to go to film school in the East Coast because I've lived in California my entire life, and a lot of what I want to do, like in college and like as I get older, is just kind of like go places and experience things because then I can take those experiences and learn from not only what I've seen and done, but from like the people that I meet or like the people that I'll get to see and kind of just take that experience and put it into my work and make specifically I'm hoping to be a writer and a director for narrative filmmaking. That's like my dream. And just kind of at that point, I'm just hoping to like be able to experience and to be experiencing things that I haven't already and to be learning from life, basically, I guess. Yeah.
Ax?
I've had so much time to prepare and I still feel nothing. But in 5 years, I'll be a sophomore in college. I'm definitely going to college, otherwise, my mother will have my head. And I possibly will have a career in film. I'm not, but I don't see it as like my only path. Like, it's not, I guess it's not there for me. But I love filmmaking and I love watching film and I love so many parts of it. And it's genuinely fascinating. And I think I will 1000% continue to be like a fan of film and kind of a little bit of a film nerd and just, like being in that environment. Even if it's not a career path for me. And also like continue to like make videos and like talk about stuff and make videos about it or photograph things. And like I love stop motion videos. Like I don't know why I love stop motion so much, but I just do. So I'll hopefully continue making those. Yeah.
Izzy?
Yeah, so in 5 years, I'll be in college or film school. And yeah, I hope to be studying to become a cinematographer.
So thank you all for sharing. That's really wonderful to hear from all of you where you see yourself in 5 years. And as you may see, our time is up, but I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to go ahead and say anything they want to in the chat, any compliments. You can do some fun reactions and things like that. And I just wanted to thank every single person for coming here today, celebrating International Women's Month with us the last day. And also just for watching the Divided States of America, supporting these very talented filmmakers. And thank you so much. We're so glad to see you here.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some family members or friends who weren't able to make it today, but this session is recorded. So we're hoping to also be able to share and continue these conversations that are so important. And yeah, just kind of echoing things in the chat, like I'm just so incredibly proud and honored to have been able to work with you guys and see your growth. And it's just been so fun just being part of this process. And like Grace was saying, thank you so much for those who were able to make it today. I think it's just so meaningful to be able to create space and celebrate such talented filmmakers too. We can all just say thank you for each other.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching the film, and it means a lot to us.